All right, he's coming, Carsten.
Yeah. It's,
Cool. Okay, then I think we just start. All right. So welcome everyone to the 15th Tagion Townhall session. Good to see you all. Thank you for attending. My name is Jonas, and I'm today's host. And for today's town hall, we have prepared a small agenda, which I'll be sharing with you in a second. But before doing that, I just briefly want to let you know that these town hall sessions are a place where we get together and update the community on what we've been working on, and also invite you and encourage you to ask questions if there's anything that is unclear to you, if there's anything you simply wants to know more about, or also let us know if there's anything you disagree with. And you can do that either using the chat, or if you want to, you're more than welcome to join us here on stage for a verbal discussion. With that being said, let's have a look at today's agenda. So I'll just share my screen with you here. All right. So first we will touch upon the business development side and share with you a bit about our recent learnings from having talked to different entities. Thijs will do that. And then next, Leander will present to you our updated tokenomics, which is simply just a updated definitions, more simplified definitions, and also briefly run through the updated vesting terms. And then finally, I myself will talk about our proposed Sybil resistance mechanism for the Tagion network, which we call proof of community. So that's what we're going to cover today. And yeah, again, if there's any questions as we go along, simply just write them in the chat or join us on stage. Yeah, so on that note, I will hand it over to you, Thijs, if you can join us on stage. Maybe I need to invite you to see.
Hi, Jonas.
Hi, Thijs.
Can you hear me? Yeah. So sorry for being late.
Okay. No worries.
And yeah, I just joined basically. So in our business development, that was the topic, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what is happening here? We had explored quite some different avenues with many different clients now. Basically, different businesses wants to build on top of Tagion and use the technology. So we have different streams now. One of them is you could say traceability, tracing goods in an extremely secure manner in a supply chain. You can use it for the traceability and also the inventory management, and that's a means to easily reconcile across a global supply chain. There we have spoken to different companies and cases, and we are working there with some use cases. So that's one avenue, so to speak, that is very interesting and has a lot of potential. Then there is, of course, you could say that the banking avenue as well, where we are both in touch with funds and also we have been in discussion with some banks. And actually, the funny part here is it's always good to talk to how it works out in the real world. Some of the banks were very frank and said it's basically BS and it doesn't work because it cannot scale blockchain technology or DLT, and and they cannot solve the privacy issues. And actually, two different entities said that to us because they already tried some different technologies and tried to do use cases, and then they gave up. So that was actually very interesting feedback. So we spoke there to some of the engineers, business developers in those banks, and one of the privacy issues they have is like, of course, how can you ensure transactions are done in private, basically, but still you can use it for compliance. Also, it's not revealing competitive information and so forth. That's a problem for them, and also that they could not delete data again. That's a big problem, which they have not been able to fix in a good manner. I think one of them said they have used some ZK privacy solutions from Microsoft and so forth, and they haven't been able to solve it. And then, of course, on the scalability, they said they also tried. There was some of the blockchain engineers from one of the entities that they also tried basically, and Ruse used the roll-up solutions for scalability. But then again, as they say, they said it with a smile. Then there is fully congestion in the mainnet, so it cannot process the roll-up proofs. There is not enough storage and process power to process the proofs or store the blocks. So that's actually extremely interesting. And it's both interesting. They're looking for ways to have more efficient digital infrastructure. They're actually very interested in opening up. And it's also interesting. They already have a lot of experience. And also hear about the problems. The interesting part is then we have another architecture. So I don't know what to call it. We discussed it yesterday. We have a modular architecture. So basically means the execution and consensus layer is divided from the storage layer, meaning we can delete records again. We can also create one-way relations between records in our systems, call them hash records or name records, which sort of make it work like a database. So they thought that was very interesting and would like to hear more and also experiment with this because they saw this as a potential solution for both for scalability issues and also for privacy issues. And that's also why we are going into the traceability area as well, because it's working more or less as you could say it's a distributed database system where you can where we can compete with other supply chain solutions. So that is what is happening there. In some of the funds we're talking to, they are very interested in this for, you could say, internal administration of, for example, their own credits, which they distribute to their different funds, buying up the credits and so forth, internally in their systems, like big setups. And if they could get more efficient administration with less errors, then they were very happy. But they has also calculated if they can just not so if they could make it more efficient, so use credit, for example, 24 hours later, so they can pay out the credit 24 hours later to the funds or to the creditors, compared to the normal flow, that would mean extremely much savings for them, like significant savings. So that is some of the things we're working with now, trying to do business cases and proof of concept, so to speak, with them. So that's ongoing work, and that's extremely interesting. Yeah, and it's also interesting to learn about, of course, how others have experience with some of the current systems out there, and some of the real problems for the customers. So that's what's happening there. I don't know if there is any questions or comments to this.
I guess maybe I'll just try to sum up very briefly what you just said. So essentially, we have been speaking to different entities within the verticals of supply chain and finance, and these companies, a lot of them have experimented with DLT before, but they have encountered some problems, especially related to privacy, the ability to delete data, and scalability. And that's actually where, due to the fact that we have, you could say, built a distributed database or decentralized database rather than a decentralized ledger, we can actually accommodate a lot of the needs that they have, which is why they find Tagion interesting. Right.
Yeah, that's very well said, Jonas. You're right. True.
Good. Okay. Yeah, but again, if there's any questions, you can type it into the chat. We can also always revert or go back to it. So if something pops up 5 minutes from now, that's simply just type it into the chat, and we will.
And I actually don't know if is Carsten. I don't know, Carsten. Have you planned to speak about anything in relations to the development or anything? I was a bit late, so I don't know. No, are we going to talk about this today? No. Okay.
Nope.
Because I would just shortly say that we have been discussing now with some of those new customers and potential partners. Of course, one of the next steps we are hopefully going to take rather soon is that we are going to build this some different use cases or demonstrations for different application areas. And for this, of course, also the guys in the core are working very hard on both reaching our technical targets, upgrading the system, but also Carsten is working very much on the VASM, and we also discussed how to do like quick prototypes with VASM and web technologies. So that's of course also something which we are very much looking into and hoping that could be very efficient, so we can create some quick prototypes for those different verticals which we are talking to. That's maybe a little bit it for business development and how we tie it up to tech.
Yep. All right.
Just to mention, because this will be a segue into the chapter that I'm going to present, there have, of course, been questions in the previous town halls and on other channels about when is this actually going to happen, because we had, you might remember, we had said that there is interest and we're talking to potential clients and we're confident that there will be a contract very soon, but unfortunately we had to postpone this because one thing is, of course, to identify the uniqueness and the benefits of Tagion in principle, and the other thing is to actually then find the concrete use case that one can directly build and experiment and showcase and things with. So we're still in the process of doing that, and that is also one of the reasons for how we updated the tokenomics, which I'm going to speak about next.
Yeah. So you made your own introduction. That's very good.
Acknowledge the questions we had about this recently, and also to say yes, we are aware that we have been hoping to present something concrete in the business development side for a while now, and yet we can't tell you yet who that is going to be with and what it's on and exactly how this is going to work, but we're still on it. Okay, and if there's no other questions, I'll take us to the second part, the updated tokenomics, which for which I will share my screen to something that you can all see for yourself on the interwebbings as well. So this is, I hope you're now seeing my screen, Jonas. Can you say yes?
Yeah.
Great. So what you're seeing now, what you're seeing now is the landing page to our documentation of Tagion, docs.tagion.org. Previously, this was only for the code documentation and the technical side of things. It's still there, tech documentation, but I think in the last town hall, the second but last even, we have introduced that now we also have the governance documentation and development pages on here. It's different from the technical pages because it's not presenting what it is and how it works, but it also is presenting our thinking of how we think it will work once we actually reach decentralization or distribution in the first place. So if you open these pages, you see the introduction that also gives you the now defined phases of decentralizing Tagion. Mainnet is running, but of course it's still, well, looking at it now, one would have to say it is still centralized. So this gives you the release phases for decentralization. We've talked about this before, but what we now want to look at are the different governance areas. Token economy has been presented already last time, the first few versions, and network formation is what Jonas will present next. And in token economy, if you toggle down here, there's this new page now, Tagion issuance and allocation. And maybe already by this first graphic, you might recognize this from our tokenomics papers. The last one was published in June 2024. And this online version now supersedes that tokenomics paper. There is, of course, updated figures there about how many tokens we have sold, how many tokens are now unlocked. So the vesting period is over and those tokens can be requested for payout. There's an update on the figures of how many are in circulation. But mentioning all this, we have also updated the definitions of these things. So there's a simple table there, so you can easily see and verify when we say maximum supply, when we say total supply, assigned supply, unlocked supply, which used to be the vested supply, and circulating supply, what exactly we mean with those things and how we are going to report on them. Basically, not much has changed in these definitions other than simplifying them and using more intuitively graspable words. So vested, which is always a bit different between vesting and vested and fully vested and what that means to different people. Now we call it unlocked because everybody understands, yes, you can access your tokens now that you might have bought and they were locked before, now they're unlocked. And then circulating is everything that all these unlocked tokens that actually have been paid out to your wallets. Previously, we tried to exclude from the circulating one everything that team and founders would have had in their wallets, but we decided that that doesn't actually make much sense. There's no industry standard. All the tokens that are in a Just Pay wallet are on the market and can be used and traded, so they are all included in the circulating supply now. You might sometimes see these green boxes or other colored boxes. They immediately ask you for input or for your attention, and here saying, if you find other metrics more useful, let us know and we'll report and discuss that. So please go in and find out for yourself. But the other thing, and that's why I also said this relates to the business development and to the delays we had last year. The vesting terms have changed, not for investors, not for the pre-sale and for the post-sale investors. That's all as it used to be. Also for active community members who might have received Tagions for activities they've done on and for Tagion. But for Descartes and for team and founders, we changed the terms in light of the delay. So basically, we postponed it all away from the minting event, the TGE event that happened with the mainnet launch at the end of 2023, towards the point of time at which we can actually say that Tagion is distributed. So we are kind of hanging the carrot for ourselves a bit further into the future, and only when we reach the release phase number 3, the curated release, where other people can actually join the network, run nodes, the governance structures is in place. We're trying it out kind of in an open public experiment. From that point on, the clock ticks starts ticking for the team founder and the card allocations, and only from then the vesting terms as they were described before will come into place. What that leads to, you can now see in this graph, which is the adaptation from the graph you had in the last tokenomics paper. There it was still called vested supply, but we now call it unlocked supply to make it clear. And you see that the bump in releasing tokens has kind of moved into the future, and it's a bit vague, but from the point in time when we are distributed from then on, the tokens for team and founders and potentially for Descartes will also become unlocked, and that's why there's a steep increase at that point of time. And Jonas, Thijs, anybody, in case I forgot something, let me know now. Otherwise, I would hand it over to questions from our audience.
Yeah.
No, I think that's it. And also, I like that we simplified the terms and yeah, very extremely easy to understand, at least from my point of view. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Definitely.
Great. And as with all these things, once people now look at these pages, I'll put the link into the chat in a second. If you go study them and find out that something is unclear or you would like it to be explained a bit better, just get in touch and let us know, and we'll do that. And it then now being online and not in PDF format, of course, makes it very simple and quick to do updates and changes and corrections. So please suggest, and we'll be happy to follow suit.
Yep. All right. Thank you for that, Leander. Then we will jump to the last topic of today, which is Sybil resistance. And I'll just share my screen with you. All right. Yeah. Yeah. As we have talked about the last couple of times, we have this governance site where we continuously add new sections. So far, we have and Leander just touched upon that. We have covered tokenomics, which is both the supply side, but also the demand side. What drives the value of the token, and how prices and are set and TDNs are used within the system. So as part of this exercise, we have also started building out the section called network formation. And if you click upon that, you see that we have divided it into two sections, one called introductions and another called proof of community. So in the introductory part, we lay out what is meant by Sybil resistance, what it is and why it matters, and also briefly covers how it works in other systems, like in Bitcoin and Ethereum. And then also shed some light on some of the problems it creates. So just to give you just to dive a bit more into that, if we click here, you can see that yeah, we briefly outline what Sybil resistance is, and then explain how it works in Bitcoin and Ethereum. Then if we go to the next one, we introduced this concept of re-centralization, which is sort of the opposite to decentralization. It's the fact that a lot of these systems may at some point be centralized. Again, here it's important to emphasize that decentralization is not some binary thing where either a system is or isn't decentralized. It's more of a spectrum where it can be more or less decentralized. But the fact is that a lot of these systems, they tend to maybe at one point be very decentralized, but then gradually they become more and more centralized. And so, for instance, if you take something like Bitcoin, they use a Sybil resistance mechanism called proof of work. And I think I forgot to explain this, but Sybil resistance, very briefly explained, is simply just a mechanism to decide who can participate in consensus, like how do you agree on the state of the network, and potentially also governance. So in Bitcoin, they use this thing called proof of work, where you then have miners mining blocks, proposing blocks, which then other nodes agree on. And the problem with this way of doing it is that there's this thing called economies of scale, where, but if let's take a mining company, they might have a lot of capital to invest into mining rigs, and or make favorable electricity contracts, all of these things, which makes it profitable for them to run a big mining operation. Whereas for me as a lone individual, it may not be profitable for me to run a mining rig here in my apartment because I don't have the first and foremost, I don't have the knowledge, I don't have the capital to buy some proper mining rigs, and I don't have favorable electricity costs. So all this taken together just creates an environment where it's the large players who sort of dominate this Sybil or this network, the consensus and the governance. It's essentially them who get to decide the fate of the network. And that is definitely a problem. Also due to the fact that, so for instance, if there is a big mining operation in China, what happens if suddenly China bans mining, or if it happens in the US or whatever, or they impose strict mandates on the mining, saying that certain transactions should be left out. These things it makes the system a lot more vulnerable. And it's sort of the same thing that you find in Ethereum, which uses a Sybil resistance mechanism called proof of stake, where you then stake tokens, and then as you have staked a certain amount of tokens, which in the case of Ethereum is 32 ETH, then you get to decide on or participate in the consensus process. Again, validate and propose blocks containing transactions to the network. But here you have the problem of, first and foremost, there's high barrier to entry. You need a lot of capital to participate. That's sort of the first problem. But then there's also the problem of people who have staked a lot of tokens slowly accumulating a lot of tokens. And while you would say, even if I were to you'd say there is the possibility through Ethereum to stake using what's called delegated proof of stake, where it can stake maybe just one ETH in a pool, which then collects funds from a lot of different people, and then run a validator on their behalf. But even then, so in that sense, it is possible for most people to participate. But the problem is that still there is this logic of capital producing capital, or money generating money, and in the span of time, we just have this problem that capital and power consolidates, it concentrates in the hand of few entities, which then get more and more influence over the network. So that's sort of the overall logic of this. That's sort of some of the problems that we see with these current mechanisms for preventing Sybil attacks. So there are certain problems where these networks, due to the way they want to secure the network, that centralizes power in the long term. And that's why we have looking towards another way of doing it, which we call proof of community. So if I go on here, the way we propose doing it here is, and it might be easier for you if you simply go in here and read about it yourself. But the main idea is that we have taken a lot of inspiration of how it actually works in the real world. That first a person is born, and then there is social verification. You gain trust through the social relations you are embedded within, and it's sort of the same logic that guides our thinking here. Where first, to decide who can participate in consensus and governance, we want to verify that people are not malicious. They have the best interest of Tagion at heart. So a way of doing that is saying that first, to participate in consensus, to participate in governance, you need to be born into the network. And and that happens by two entities coming together and then verifying or mating, so to speak, and out of that comes another identity. Um, and then we have this. It's a rather it's a rather complex topic. I realize now to explain in a good way, and it's much easier to read. But the idea is that we have these mechanisms, these genetics to determine are ensuring that there's no inbreeding. So, for instance, it's very difficult for someone to spawn a lot of identities within the network to participate in consensus, to participate in governance, to overtake the network. Um, that's due to the fact that you actually get a genetic score. So the more diverse you are, or the more diverse your gene score is, based on the more diverse your parents are, the higher score you get, and the more you can, um, how to say it, like, yeah, then you can create other members. Okay, yeah, it's quite difficult for me to explain, actually. I see, but okay, let me try to make it a bit more simple here. Essentially, it's a reputation system. It's a reputation system where you vouch for each other and sort of say, this person, I endorse this person, and as you do that, you gain more influence with it in the system, and you gain more influence within consensus and governance. That's sort of the main idea of it. So there is no need to actually stake tokens, or anything like that, or buy expensive mining rigs, anything like that. It's just about endorsements, and endorsements essentially reflect the amount you have contributed to the network. If you write a lot of articles, if you um, participate a lot of in online discussions or anything like that, you will gain a reputation, and people will endorse you, and that in turn will translate into more influence within the network. That's sort of the basic logic of it. I know I made it unnecessarily complex here. It's not that complex, but so I'll also encourage you to actually go read it. And then if you have any questions, or if you have any comments, any disagreements, yeah, always feel free to share it here in Discord or wherever you want. But yeah, that's sort of the basic logic of it all. And I hope it was not.
Yeah,
I
but I
realize it
think
was complex.
yeah, this is very lovely, Jonas, and also you've been working a lot with this to explain it and write it down. So we have tried to go on a road where, from the beginning of, I think we call it proof of people and proof of community later, and we always had this belief that we need a system that is basically governed by, you could say, the social governance that is in the end the important part. Because if you can somehow manipulate that, then the system will not work. You could say that you could say the operational parts will still always be a consequence of that, so to speak, and that is also what has been guiding our work here, and also always been written down now. And this is also an open discussion, and now we are starting to discuss and implement basically this learning process. Um, I see it extreme. I'm so happy that also that you did so much work here, and also picked up some of the old ideas. I think that's very interesting, um, because we need to somehow create. I see it like an association basically, where we need to cater for all the members' interests, but at the collected interest of the members. But maybe now we just don't have an association. Now we just have what we ever we call it, a governance system in the system itself, right? Um, and that's an interesting task to solve, which ultimately will govern the system. Um, So if anybody wants to participate in this, help test it, or have good ideas or whatever, also for how to do decision processes, for example, and so forth, please join in the discussion, because this is the main thing that all DLTs or all systems needs to solve in the end, because this is where all decisions are made in the end, and also determines the viability of the systems. It's not the tech, this part here. So yeah, I'm very happy that all the effort and all the good ideas has come out, and also had another iteration internal in the team, and also with your networks, Jonas. So I'm very happy that we are working with it now, and it's moving forward. I just encourage everybody to work with it and participate if they want to. Of course.
Yeah. And also it should be emphasized, this is sort of the first iteration, and there's much more to come, and at some point we also need to distill it, make it more concrete, and also put some formulas onto it, if this is the way we want to go. And yeah, that's still up for discussion. But at least for now, this is what we plan on doing, and then the next step would be to involve graph theorists or anything like that, who then can help us actually make these ideas more concrete and also simulated. Yeah. All right.
Just to say, of course, it's difficult to explain because it's under development and it's a complex topic, and that's exactly why we are now moving it online for everybody to follow and to chime in, instead of brooding in by ourselves and
Yeah.
tending to come up with that one idea that will bind them all. So this is exactly the point of the process.
Thank you, Lana. Yeah. I also think what would have been good is like a presentation where step by step instead of yeah. But yeah, we can do it at another time. But yeah, I think that's more or less it for today. And yeah, so if there's no questions or comments, yeah, let's wrap it up. I'll let you know that we have scheduled the next town hall for the 17th of April, on a Thursday, same time, same place. Yeah, I hope to see you all then. But yeah, until then, enjoy the spring, and good to see you guys. Have a nice one.